Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Opiate Use and Prevention Commission meeting. This meeting is being recorded by the Greenfield Opioid Use and Prevention Commission in the city of Greenfield. And the chair is utilizing an artificial intelligence note taker. If any other person is present and is doing the same, you must notify the chair at this time. Give me 1 second while I actually pull that up. There we go. And we're good to go. Okay. So the meeting's been called to order. We're going to do a roll call on members. And I'm going to start with our newest member on Zoom, Pedro Alvarez. Would you unmute yourself, please? And we're just saying whether we're present.
Present.
Thank you, Pedro. Welcome.
Thank you.
Anna?
I'm here.
Michael? And I believe Yams just
Present.
showed up, so thank you. Come on through, Yams. You're right on time. We're doing a roll call. Just turn your mic on and say present.
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Yay. The next item on the agenda is to approve the Opioid Use and Prevention Commission meeting minutes from October 20th, 2025. Could I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve minutes.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
And since we have a member on Zoom, we're going to do a roll call. Pedro?
Present.
No. Have you been able to read the minutes?
Yeah, I did review them and I approve.
Okay, yeah, because we're voting on approving the minutes from last month.
I approve.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Perfect. Anna
Yes.
and Michael
Yes.
and Yams.
Yes.
And chair votes yes, so we have a unanimous approval of the October 20th, 2025 Opioid Use and Prevention Commission meeting minutes. Public comment. Is anybody here to make public comment? I don't see any takers. What? Okay. Alrighty. So the next item we're on old business now on the agenda. The first one is discussion about commission's internal framework and development of processes, communications, and periodic financial review of abatement funds received by the city. Anybody want to start that discussion? I know Member Godfrey is not here and she presented that, so we can still have a discussion about it if folks wanted to. How do folks feel?
You want to kind of just fill me in with what's your discussion? I mean, I read it in the notes, but
Yeah, well, Abby
Background.
brought up just to talk about how we're going to work together on this commission, because there's a lot of things like in other committees where you can, have conversations with 5 people and it doesn't matter. And we know that per the open meeting law and things that we have to abide by, that we can't do that. So, we wanted to look at that about how we can communicate. The mayor was here last month and talked about realistically what the financial director right now can do. Right now, it sounds like quarterly reviews. He is going to be invited to our December meeting because he was not able to come. Both the clerk and him were not able to attend this meeting. So next month. So my thinking is maybe we could table that until we hear from the financial director and the clerk, just for clarity, because my understanding of the communication bylaw is that three of you could technically discuss together, say you're working on like a project. But if you shared that with another person, that's a violation of open meeting law. So we're trying to find a fair way of, creating policies where we can work together so everybody knows what the guidelines are. And that we're not inadvertently, violating open meeting law. I know everybody's doing the best they can in the commission to try to stay away from that. So there was a lot of back and forth with the clerk and the mayor and just sort of understanding what that meant. We do have we could look at the document from the abatement settlement funds. I think that we could probably do that tonight, just so we can look at it for clarity, what Greenfield has right now in the coffers. And if you want to, and Anna's going to pull it up on the screen. I tried to print it, but it's just too small.
Pedro, can you confirm you can see that?
Yeah, I can. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Alrighty, so it looks like, what Jeannie said, we have about like 600,000 in there right now. Or maybe it's seven. No, that's the total. There's about 550 or something around there in our coffers right now. If you want, if you want to add that up, Anna, we can get a total right now, because the table on the right is actual payment that is already in our bank account. Okay, right. And then, the financial director will help us delete the burial funds that we've already allocated for that. And what we don't have is the 6 payments one from Purdue and then 5 other distributors. Just to share with the commission, the Purdue Pharma case right now is in front of the judge, and it looks like the judge is going to approve it. And once he does that, it's instantaneous. There's no waiting period. Like the lawyers and the people impacted have been told, as soon as that judge gavels, that funding is going right into people's bank accounts. Whether that happens realistically or not, but as far as the municipality, I do know that we signed on to all 6 of them saying, yes, we want a part of that money. That was Ginny and the financial director that stayed on top of that. So that's more money that's coming in. So this is the framework, and this lookup tool. My suggestion is Google Massachusetts statewide opiate settlement funds. You can find it at mass.gov more easily than the Mosaic right now. I found the Mosaic was very cumbersome, like trying to find exactly where this data table was. And I kind of know what I'm looking for, but just imagine somebody who doesn't know what they're looking for. So that's my suggestion is just Google it. It's on mass.gov as well under that. And they're supposed to update it. And then what Ginny said was, due to staffing situations at City Hall, that quarterly is something that they could probably do and give us like a quarterly number of what's in there for now. That's a temporary measure until they get, whatever situation, whether it's staffing or whatever. And then we could request a frequency that works for this commission. But right now we kind of have to work. So that's the money we got to work with. Is there any more discussion about this or?
So I guess my question would be, so obviously, so the mayor's saying that we don't have a lot of people to kind of keep up on the finance part of it. So with the clerk, are we going to kind of explore maybe having like a subcommittee that can deal with financing?
We could
Since
and
we
we
could
couldn't,
do
but
like
no.
3 people.
Yeah, I think Anna has something to say. Yeah, because I think someone said something that we could not have a subcommittee, but.
I was actually, one of the thoughts I had about the broader conversation was that it could be worth later thinking about whether we want to assign a treasurer.
Mm.
And then that person could get basically like the quarterly update from the finance department. Like, to be fair, it's not, like Sarah said, it's not hard to find what has been dispersed to the city, because that's all extremely public information. Like, once we start spending money, we're going to want to keep up with our expenditures.
And transparency, yeah. Yeah.
I think that's probably just worth checking in with with the finance director when we get to talk to him. That's my main question.
And I also want to, because I think that's a really good idea, but I think we have to check with the clerk because our ordinance did not say that we had a treasurer. So I don't know the mechanism to change that. I think we might have to go to council to change that, but I will ask Kathy that. I'm gonna write that down, ask Kathy. And Pedro, Kathy Scott is our city clerk, just so you know the names.
Yeah, I met her the other day.
Yeah, and Quinn is our assistant, they are our assistant clerk.
Point of clarification, do we have a secretary written into the ordinance?
Do not, that's why I brought it up. Yeah, because we don't, we have a, oh, sorry. Thank you,
Not
yes.
treasure, okay.
You're right, secretary,
So
not
we
treasurer.
would have to possibly go back to the drawing board in order to add a treasurer, or is that something that we maybe?
I think we can file an amendment.
I'm wondering
Okay.
if you could add it to the secretary's duties as just kind of acting as the treasurer, looking over financings.
Mm.
Might be something we could
That's
add to that.
okay, that's a good suggestion.
That
And
could
let
be
me,
part, because
I'll
I
add
mean,
that to the Kathy question.
because
to
in my
see-
head, I just think of it as running kind of like I have to run my department. We're gonna have to do, we're gonna
Right.
take money out of somewhere. We're gonna have to do turnovers to know how much we're spending. We got to deal with the finance director probably more than quarterly if we do start really giving out a lot of different money to different places.
Yep.
So that's how I would kind of look at it. So yeah, if we do have a secretary, we can kind of assign that and talk to the clerk and see what we can assign for a position in that. I think that would definitely be beneficial because we're gonna need to look at it like that in the future once we start moving
Yeah.
on that.
I think that's a fair suggestion, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm gonna ask Kathy both of those questions. And let's see if we can do it that way, because, the treasurer, the secretary, excuse me, was not really defined. It just says secretary in our ordinance. So there's some wiggle room there. So maybe, we'll see. I mean, that sounds like a really good idea. Any other conversations about agenda item 5A? Because I'd really like for Abby to be here as well to help, help us facilitate that conversation. So I'm gonna table the rest of discussion about commission's internal framework and development of processes, communications to periodic financial review of abatement funds and received by the city. Can I have a motion to table that?
Motion to table?
Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call. Pedro, yes to table or no?
Yes,
Okay, Yams,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so that's unanimous. We're gonna table that for next month. Okay, moving on. This was your actually item, Michael. Discussion of burial fund commission will discuss whether to not contract with a third party to administer the burial fund table from last meeting. I do want to update you. Did you watch at all? Okay. Because there was, and I've been kind of like pinging around this in my head too, that we would have to pay a third party, right? And that takes money out of our coffer. I think further discussion is needed to see how we with city support.
Yeah, in my thought process in bringing it up, my concern was more of just of the reviewing of applications. How critical we're going to be with our applications that we would eventually have to give to people to apply for the burial money. Just in how in depth we are and who's reviewing it and who's kind of looking at it was kind of my just concern. Was the commission going to be able to review a bunch if we got, an influx of a lot of them? Would it be easier to have a third party company kind of do that part and be kind of the impartial eye that looks at it and approves them? Just so people don't have to be approving things that they might know people or other things that kind of come into play working on the committee and in the community, and being part of the community as well. A third party might be better in that aspect. But that's kind of where I was leading. I was a little more concerned with the application process.
Right.
Obviously paying them and having them submit the money and things like that, I think are things that we could possibly do ourselves, obviously. But I think the application process was where I was a little more concerned on maybe just having a third party look at it might be the better streamlined process.
Mm.
But yeah, we can have more discussion on that. I'm
Uh,
fine with
and-
that.
And we could think about designating certain people, right? Like you as a Board of Health Director are privy to more information than the rest of us in this lane, right?
Mhm.
The mayor obviously has to be involved, any mayor, whether it's Ginny or somebody else. Um, and appointing somebody else that is outside of.
We have to move to the lights on.
I know you're here, okay? So, and maybe we could, have that discussion next month too, of thinking of, and I'll loop Abby in about designating folks, right, to streamline it. Because you're going to get that information anyway as a Board of Health Director outside of this commission, the mayor is as well. Um, and I like the fact that it doesn't go to the folks, it goes to the funeral home,
Mhm.
so there's, um, and I think in our first meeting, we sort of had a really, impactful conversation about, when people submit things and in good faith, you know, um, and being able to look outside of, hey, was this directly an overdose or was this consequences of, long-term opioid use, which I feel would fit into that parameter.
Mhm.
But that's just my opinion. But that seemed like the consensus was people kind of agreed with that, like we should definitely have some parameters and guidelines so that the community knows, and that the application is public facing. Hey, this is what it looks like. This is how you access it. This is, we haven't even created that process. Like, okay, so your person passed and you go to the funeral home. Like, I know that Ginny's done a lot of work with connecting with the funeral homes and letting them know, hey, this is offered in this bucket. But creating that roadmap, right? So that people know, hey, this is, so I liked your idea of this, but I was worried about, and I think the last month's discussion was right, like the bucket of money could be spent somewhere else, but I also hear what you're saying.
Mhm.
So like finding that blend of accountability, right? But also preserving resources for other things.
Yeah, I think as we move forward, we're going to learn how much we can do.
Yep.
What our extensions are going to be anyways.
Absolutely.
How much we can get done with
Yep.
help from the town and how much we're going to have to rely on maybe possibly third parties or ourselves doing more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yams.
I like the idea of having somebody designated, or maybe if we're able to talk to see with the town if we could have something similar to a subcommittee, one or two people who are handling that. I'm not partial to having this be through a third party. I do understand some of the confidentiality of, if these are people that, they're family members we know or people themselves that we have known and sadly lost. But I think with many of us working in the town or in the field, that's inevitable
Mm.
with the work that we're doing, both here and in our personal or professional lives. So I think that's eventually bound to happen. I would like to see as much money as we possibly could spend, like going towards community members in this town, which is the biggest reason why I'm not partial to outsourcing that and having to pay for that. But I understand that it could possibly make things more streamlined. But I think we're all pretty capable and smart people too. So
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, James. Pedro.
Yeah. I love the idea, and the concept of this. I was just wondering how far along are we in this process to like actually making this a reality? Like, is everything in place now? Are we discussing like if like who's handling the like if this does occur and we need to set somebody up with either a funeral home for the burial, or do we have everything in place yet, or is this like the beginning stages of it to try to figure
So-
all that out?
Yeah, so I can respond to that. Um, so what happened, we are in the progress. So right now, the mayor gets the request. And some of those, so you don't know the history, Pedro, some of those requests came before we had a fully formed commission. So the mayor made a decision, right, because the families were in a predicament and approved, right? And she brought that to the first commission meeting to let us know, hey, these came through before you're officially formed, here they are. And the way the process is right now is the mayor receives the request. um, And she comes to us now and discusses it. Before we formed, it was kind of like, so we're working on a process. That's why it's still old business, because there is one, but there isn't one. There's like an unofficial one. And Michael, did you have something to add to that? Please do.
Yeah, so our process kind of before the commission was fully adopted was the mayor she got two requests. She probed with me about, the people dying. Most of the burial permits and death stuff comes through our office. So we just had discussions on would these kind of fit into the opioid money. So we decided that both of them would. So she did okay the money for those two burials. And then when the committee was finally adopted, she did come in and meet with us and said that even though she's not bound to it yet because we don't have an official process, that she would come to the committee first and have a meeting with us as a whole during open session. And then we would decide as a group
Yep.
with her, pretty much her blessing that, if it met the criteria or not. And then ultimately this decision was still up to her. Our future is to hoping to tailor this application that we can just send right out to people that make the request. They can fill the application out. We can get it into open session in a meeting, vote on it, and get the money right out to them. So that should hopefully be the new process. So our next process would be kind of setting up this application and what we want to see on it and what we want for the criteria. So that's kind of what our discussion has been. So if, you have anything to add on that, what you think might fall into the application, what you'd like to see on it, I think that's kind of what we're working on right now. And then hopefully once we can settle that up, I think that'll be the good start to jumpstart actually getting the money out faster.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it definitely, we have to have the application all set um, and also like, I know because of my own personal losses that, funeral homes are really not in the business of like saying no to people, right? And they know if we have a process, like there is an urgency to it, but it's not an urgency like, oh, we're not going to handle your person because, if they fill out an application, it gets approved. Um, we have to figure that part out too with Ginny of like, or any mayor, hey, it's been approved. The notification goes to the funeral home, hey, this was approved, the funds will be deposited on this day, or however, we don't know the back end of it, whether she cuts a check or, we don't have any information about that. Um, but yeah, that's where we're at right now, is just trying to figure out what the application should say, being mindful and respectful. It's a really hard thing to do and to talk about and, to create. Now, Pedro, do you have, because I know that you're very involved with Tapestry and a lot of this work. Do you have any knowledge of like other communities that are doing something? I mean, we had the city of Boston folks here already, but anybody local that's doing similar?
I think like locally, there's just been a lot of talks of it. I think people are still trying to figure out how it's best
Yeah.
going to work out. I do like the explanation that was just given, having like certain criteria, application process, and then that being approved. Because I
He froze. Pedro, come back. Well, hopefully he'll be
with
in for,
the
there we go.
mayor, the commission, to be part of that to make that decision as well. Are we working with a specific funeral home that's going to handle all of this, or is it do the
No.
families get to decide that is it going to be a local one? Is that going to be part of the criteria as well?
No,
I think,
the
yeah,
family decides that.
the
and-
family will be able to decide that. Honestly, mostly anything in the area, we already work with through the health department for payments.
Right.
I think the only thing that might hold that up a little bit is if it's somebody completely brand new, they have to get like a vendor number and get all, put into the town system to get paid, but most of them should be fairly quickly. I think the only thing I'll see that might be somewhat of an issue, which again, we can kind of bring up with the clerk, is, there is obviously some time frame of getting stuff to people and getting them in and getting them buried. So obviously meeting once a month might be tougher on some burials. You know, if we had just met and someone applies and they meet the criteria and they want to get buried in the next week or two, and we just had a meeting. So I think we're gonna have to figure out, are we gonna hold quick executive sessions on Zoom to approve applications? Or can we appoint, a group that could meet a quorum and approve applications? I
Yeah,
think that's
yeah.
something we're gonna have to look at too, because
Right.
if we
Yeah.
do get ones in bad timing, we still have to be cognitive of getting them out fast enough
Right.
for the people.
But also I like how you mentioned that, because certain faiths, like I'm Jewish, right? So my people, we have to be buried in a certain amount of time. That's part of our faith. I love how you said that. And Pedro, so what we did come up with is we came up with a cap per request. So it's 5,000 per request. And I believe it was at like 55,000 a year. Because we looked at data from the state of residents that we've lost.
Mhm.
So we try to be really fair-minded about it. But yeah, I'm liking this, and I'm hoping that, after having a discussion with the clerk and seeing if we could form a subcommittee or something that could, because yeah, it gets tricky because it's, still could do it. If somebody, say somebody comes through tomorrow, and says, hey, I need a support, you could still hold an executive session in 2 days and giving notice, right, Anna? Is that?
No, I'm trying, quorum's four, right?
Yeah.
Our quorum's four.
Right.
Because I mean, I would honestly, if we ever had to have emergency meetings, I can always make myself available. So there's one, I'm sure you could probably make yourself available. So two.
I would definitely make myself available for a
And
situation like
so
that.
I could, I have a flexible schedule.
That's what I
so
mean.
yeah.
So if we can always come up with four people and do a Zoom executive session and at least we can vote, I think as long as we have four committed members, at least we're covering ourselves. So if,
Yeah.
if that does happen, the four of us can get on Zoom, look at the
Yeah.
application, approve things and get it approved at least. Because that would be my only concern. Like you said, I don't want to hold people up, especially for different reasons.
So, and because we're not going to vote on any of this today, because we're just having a conversation and, when we have a full commission and then we have the information, we'll have to vote on that to have, the four of us be, the subcommittee to just due to availability, right? And if something shifts, then we can talk about that and maybe somebody gets swapped out for somebody else, that has more availability. I have some flexibility, so I'd be happy to do that. And that kind of creates that, like a little bit of that process, right? We still have to like create an application. Um, I may reach back out to the Halo project and ask them, like, I think they might have given us a copy of their application. I'm gonna look in my voluminous notes right here. I know I have it somewhere, but, and just to present it to the commission so we can all look at it and talk about it and say, hey, what part of this fits our community, what doesn't? Pedro, we had a conversation about, we already mentioned that, if it's, not exactly an overdose, but it's related to substance use, and also residency. We have a lot of unsheltered individuals living in Greenfield that come from other places. And we're gonna believe people when they say that, that they are living in Franklin County. We didn't want to kind of pigeonhole ourselves to just Greenfield because we have folks coming from all over our county to live outside.
Yeah.
So we're kind of thinking about that. And Yams, did you have, or are you just saying that you had to go get that? Okay, okay, gotcha. I was making sure that you, any other discussions about this topic? Anna?
Just to say at the outset, I think I'm still somewhat team third party, but I definitely agree with everything that people have said. And so what I'd really like is just for us to like keep an eye on it as requests start to come in, because we'll know pretty fast if like, oh, this is super not workable to be able to get us all together or not. And my concerns were really just about like city capacity, and also, you know, that it's nice that the Halo Initiative has basically someone who is trained and has some expertise who can interact with grieving families at the outset. And I was, you know, I don't like the idea of it just being the mayor's office kind of on the receiving end of this, but that is also something that they do. So I'm happy with where we are. I'm just
Yeah.
throwing my 2 cents in about
And there are
that.
members of this commission that are trained in grief support,
Yeah.
including myself. You know,
But those
yeah.
are worthwhile things to pay people to do as well,
Yeah,
I think.
absolutely,
You know?
absolutely. No, I agree with you, and it's, um, you know, we're kind of driving the bus, Pedro, on the road,
Mhm.
you know, and since it's never been done before, you know, so we're kind
Yeah.
of creating the policies and stuff, and trying to create more structure, and um, you
So
know.
is the Halo initiative the third party that we were considering?
No, no, I knew that they had a burial fund project
Yeah.
through the Boston Public Health Commission. So I invited
Mhm.
the Boston Public Health Commission,
Oh,
who
great.
subcontracted the Halo project
Got it.
to administer, you know, the burial funds and extra, right? They did extra with theirs, which
Mhm.
we haven't really discussed here in the commission yet. And we definitely don't have as much money as Boston does. You know, that's the difference, you know, like they gave the Halo project, what, $1 million to be a third party? Like we don't have that kind of money, but, you know, we do have, um, you know, entities in the city that do
Mhm.
grief support, you know, that could potentially be a third party in the future. But I think I agree with what Anna said and what everybody said is that, um, you know, we can, once I get confirmation from the clerk and seeing if we could do a subcommittee, we can try it. With the understanding if it doesn't work, we have the power to change it, you know, to tweak it, to make it work. Because we're gonna have a lot of like fits and starts, because it's new. And there's a lot of things that aren't known, that we have to seek guidance from the city clerk or um, other entities and to help guide us in the work that we're doing. Um, any other conversations about this topic?
I think through what we'll have on the application and then the number of requests that we get is going to really
Yep.
determine, can we do it on our own or would it be a third party worthwhile expense?
Yep.
I think we'll find that out real fast, just by those two things alone. So yeah, I think it might be something that we can do on our own. I mean, I'm all for keeping the money obviously more towards Greenfield and not giving it to a third party if it's something we can certainly do ourselves. But I also am cognitive of if it's so overwhelming and we can't, like, we need to get the money out. So
Yeah,
I think that will be something we'll just have to look at when it happens.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Any further discussion? Yes.
I know we also discussed for community members who may not choose the route of a funeral home and would want to do a possible celebration of life.
Mm.
We touched on it briefly when we first were talking about funeral expenses, but we haven't continued the discussion surrounding that. And I didn't know where the committee stood on that.
Mm. I would do.
I mean, I'm for that. I know we talked about in that first discussion, just, religious practices of other people. And obviously people have their own ways to celebrate someone's death or remember them. So I wouldn't be against it. I
Yeah.
think again, we might have to come up with a criteria on, you're not just gonna go out and blow $5,000 on a party or something, maybe.
Mhm.
I think that might be a little harder to kind of come up with something for that, but I think if we brainstorm, we could certainly come up with some guidelines for that. That'd be my only concern, but I wouldn't be against it.
Yeah.
I share that sorry, Pedro. I share that concern too. I feel like we did a really good job as a committee of like providing a framework surrounding the money expenditured and the funeral homes and all of that stuff. But when it comes to outside of those, places, I don't want to say like institutions or whatever, but like
Yeah.
outside of that, and if we want to honor like somebody else's cultural beliefs and stuff like that, like we don't have a framework set for that, which feels big and a little unsettling on like, okay, how would we approach that, especially from a financial avenue of like it goes like from the city to the vendor, right? So how would we do that?
Yeah.
So I have a suggestion. Actually, Pedro, you were next. I apologize. Go for it, Pedro.
Yeah, and just a couple points, I guess, because and I agree with everything that's being said as well, because I think about, having a third party and providing grief support through a third party. People grieve differently, right? Culturally, it could be your culture, it could be your faith. People have their own ways of dealing with things. So again, I think keeping it, you know, in not necessarily a third party, but keeping it within the community because the people know having the families having some autonomy with that as well, I guess. And then to the piece about what they, with the money coming in, because what's the cost to like for a burial service or a cremation? It's upwards to like 5 to 10 to 15,000, and we're offering 5,000 per applicant,
Mm-hmm.
right? So again, I think being and intentional when we create in that criteria that the 5,000 is used towards that. Like the 5,000 isn't to have like the celebration of life, the 5,000 is to cover the cost of either you're having a cremation, you're having a burial, cover the funeral costs. And because again, people do grieve differently, and you want to give people the opportunities to grieve as they see fit, or celebrate the life of someone, depending on their culture, their faith. They do that differently. So again, just keeping that in mind as well, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point. And also, just for framework, the 30B procurement rules do not apply to this money. What those mean is that 30B procurement forbids payments to individuals. But Governor Healy signed an amendment her first year as a governor that allowed for this particular thing. So we could actually direct pay individuals. Um, for this purpose. Say there was somebody that didn't want to use a funeral home. I mean, I don't know other, beliefs, but there are some indigenous people that do not use either, and they put their loved one on a like a wood raft. They put them in the ocean or a body of water, and they burn them. That's a practice. That's a religious practice of some indigenous people. So we're looking at at this lens of Western civilization and what Western people do with their loved ones who pass. So we aren't bound by the 30B procurement rules for that. So we could get creative if we wanted to, and then just on the application, that could be something that's on the application. Do you have burial practices that don't fit into this bucket? Please tell us more about it. So they can tell us, hey, this is my faith, I'm this type of person, this is how we bury our people. I think that that's like a fair-minded way of kind of like staying in the bucket, making sure that the application has exactly what they're looking for. Um, so I'm really appreciating this conversation because we're really kind of getting into the nitty gritty. And thank you, Jens, for bringing that up. I really appreciate that. Um, so I have a couple like little notes for myself to connect with the mayor and the clerk about um this application. And if anybody on the commission um wants to take take the opportunity to create one, go for it, and just send it to me, and then I will send it to the rest of the commission. uh, yeah, if
I think
you.
I think we should look at other towns too and just see if maybe anybody has something out there that might be helpful.
Well, Boston is the only one that has it right
Boston,
now.
the only one? Okay.
Yeah, because that's
I
what
mean,
they just
I haven't seen that one, so it'll be great to look at that one at
what he's
least and
doing.
just see.
And I was just at a Rise Mosaic conference where a lot of that, and I was a part of a panel of other municipalities that are doing similar. And us and Boston are the only ones that are having a conversation about like, you know,
Okay.
a
That's good, though.
concentrate that has like a sort of a process, you know?
Yeah, I mean, just even looking at it, if we just like the format even, and we don't
Yeah,
like any
so
of the
I will,
questions, like.
yeah, I'll
just
share
something helpful.
I'll share the Boston one to the commission.
Yeah,
And yeah, I mean, I want to be that chair that encourages the commission. Like if you have some skills and you feel inclined that you want to go for it,
Mhm.
create it, send it to me and I'll send it to the rest of the commission. And then we'll bring it to the next meeting. So that way the public can know, you know, what we're talking about here. But I really like that, just a collaborative effort of, you know, because like we are creating something brand new and that's the hard part because, you know, and nationally too, there's not a lot of states and municipalities. You know, I'm connected nationally with Faces and Voices of Recovery, and I also did a similar panel in DC on this. And I mean, people are looking at us like, "How did you do this?" You know, and I'm like, "It's not a secret. You can duplicate. This is our roadmap." And you know, my presentation was on a roadmap. This is how we did it.
yeah, because
Um,
I think that would be a great question. You know, are you going to do a different religious practice other than a, you know, a normalized burial cremation? You know, are you going to pay? Can we pay a shaman directly? Things like that. You know.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I think just
exactly.
having just that question in itself will be very helpful.
Yeah, because it's hard to, you know, ask a person in person, right, in a very vulnerable time in their life. They lost a child, a loved one, or whatever. It'd be like, you know, but an application is sort of like, okay, I can sit here by myself and look at it, and you know, help my family members can come in and help me write it, and because it's super hard, and it's, you know, when Jenny came that first meeting. We all felt the brevity of what she was talking about. It's hard to talk about people who are gone and in such a very like fiduciary way. It's really hard.
Yeah, and I think our main goal is to get, you know, the most information we can without prodding as much ourselves. And then we get an application that everyone can fully look at and get pretty much all their concerns laid out in front of them, which would be great, especially since we're all going to have to prove it in certain times and having, you know, not having to go back with 100 questions to the person,
Yeah.
you know, to explain more, I think would be great. So I would love to see, you know, us to always go over, you know, back and forth with, you know, what we can add, because I think that's going to be very helpful to get as much as we can on there to get a full picture of what we're looking at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Michael, and I'm curious. I know that right now it's us and Halo that are doing abatement funding for funeral expenses, but I'm wondering if there's other states as well, especially if you went to the conference in DC, if you're familiar with other states who are doing anything, and if we have access to that information or what that could look like, that could be helpful.
Yep, I can absolutely get access. I can compile something for next month with the states. Faces and Voices are you know, nationwide. Every state has a representative of Faces and Voices of Recovery. So I will. That's excellent. So that way we, you know, I know that the states that I connected with, they weren't anywhere near, you know, and they were still having trouble with the municipality even listening to them. So I will connect with Favor and see if they could compile a list. I know there's a list somewhere of and it wasn't Favor that put it together. And if I could try to find that list too, it was basically like a grid, you know, like all the states and like what they're doing or not doing. So I will look for both and I will send them through so that way we can have um like, you know, more examples to kind of look at and guide us as we develop this. Because, you know, the unfortunate um, situation is, you know, we might have a request tomorrow or the next day, right? We don't, um, you know, we lost somebody in the community 4 days ago, you know, so it's real. Um, any further discussion on this topic?
Well,
We-
to that point though, I think, which kind of might come out in D as well, is maybe we should advertise again that we still are being active with that burial fund, maybe just throwing something out there online again, saying that that's out there to help, because if you're saying, you know, someone died last week or something, maybe they might not even know that we're doing
Oh,
this
from the
still.
city, like the city.
Yeah,
kinda-
just another blurb saying that, you know, this
Yep.
money's still available and
Okay.
we're out here and we're, you know, we're actively ready to give some of it out.
Okay, I'm writing that
Yeah,
down,
I
Michael,
agree.
and I'm gonna send, now, Anna, would that be you, or do I need to go to Jenny first and then it goes to you for city support?
I don't think it would not be Ginny. The communications director would be the person who would put that information out there.
Okay.
But if you CC me as well, I can help.
Okay.
Yeah, I
coordinate
think
that.
as the chairman, you can probably just send something to either me or Anna, and we can forward it to the
Okay.
to the
Perfect.
communication.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
I will do that. And thank you for that suggestion. That was a really good suggestion. Let people know that it's out there.
Yeah, because I
Um,
think as they know, we're working on this whole process, but at the same time, we can still get you some of the money if you need it.
Awesome. All right.
And just a quick question on that. How do people find out about this? Like, how is this? Is it through just word of mouth? Is it just, through conversation? Because I think about just working at the SSP, we have, especially in Greenfield, we have a number of individuals that come in daily. We have like a community board. We try to share as much information as possible with certain events that are going on in the community. So again, if there's a possibility where we can share this information, especially with some of our participants that don't have social medias, aren't on, the socials as often, might not come across, might not walk into other places to get their information either. So again, just that way we don't miss anybody and people are aware of this as well.
So that is on our agenda in D.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, no, yeah. So it's been on our we've been talking about it for a while about how to do public outreach and getting the information out there.
Got it.
So we're almost there.
Got it. Sorry about that.
No worries. No, don't ever apologize. It's totally cool. Any further discussion about burial fund? Everybody to move on. Okay, so we're gonna table the rest of this discussion because we're not gonna make any decisions tonight till next month. Then I will work on gathering some of that data for the commission and asking the clerk about whether or not we can form a subcommittee for this. So the next item.
Motion to,
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Can I hear a motion to table discussion of burial fund until next month?
motion to
Yes.
table discussion of burial fund till next month?
Can I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, gonna do a roll call vote. Pedro, how do you vote?
Yes. Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Yes.
Sarah? Yes, we have unanimous yes to table till next month. Excellent. And thank you for that, Yams. So the next item on the agenda is the community needs assessment. And we're just talking about this review of community needs assessments across other Massachusetts municipalities. It was tabled from last meeting. Have we all had an opportunity to look at these community needs assessment? And do we feel like we're ready to talk about it?
I have not fully finished it. I was on vacation for a good portion of the past week. And yeah, I just have not done it. Been very busy.
That's
Total
okay.
honesty.
It's a lot.
It is a
It's
lot.
a lot. What about you, Michael? Have you?
I haven't been able to look at all of it.
Okay.
I feel like we're gonna need a whole board to kind of figure out together what we really want to reach out with the community needs kind of is. I think that's gonna be a big group discussion. So honestly, I'd be fine with tabling that till we get more people and or at least everybody kind of in here that wants something to say about it. Otherwise, I think we're just kind of throwing ideas out there still, but I think we need to
Yeah.
be completely together on that part because that's going to be a big
Absolutely.
part.
Yams.
Was this the assessment that was put together based off of the listening session?
No, this was, well, that too. So there was a listening session that was
Mhm.
held by FERCog at the Recovery Project for the abatement funds in general, but mainly for the West County, which pooled their funds. But we also had, and that's not her, our usual guest is not here today. That's not Kelly's iPhone. Oh, it's Megan. Okay. Yeah. So Megan sent me 6 different municipalities community assessments. Thank you, Megan. So I forwarded them to commission. So it's a lot. It's a lot to look at. And honestly, like I haven't finished doing a deep dive either because it's a lot. So I would be fine to table in this until Abby is here as well. We do have another person that's potentially there's been we don't have a full vote on that yet. So I'm waiting for emails from members about yay or nay. So potentially we could have a full commission next month if If I get those within timely, then I can send them, I can forward that information to Ginny and say, yes, we're 2 thumbs up for this person. And we're not mentioning their name because they're not on the agenda and it's, we're not doing it. Pedro.
Yeah, was was the community needs assessment attached to the previous emails? Or if
I forwarded you the 6 from other communities.
okay,
You may not have received the one from FERCog, and I'll write myself a note to send that to you, Pedro. I also have to send you the rest of the minutes.
okay,
So
well, yeah,
FERCog,
that'd be great. That way, if we are going to table it, I can review it and be ready for the
yep,
15th. And the 15th, I'll be in person. I just couldn't make it in person today. I just came back from Worcester, so I didn't want to be late, so I just jumped on
thank you. Well, we
Zoom.
we have a charter that allows for, hybrid meetings, so you're good, and we appreciate your dedication to showing up anyway. So it sounds
Nah,
like
nah,
we
of
want
course. I always prefer in person, so
me too. So it sounds like we want to table this. So can I hear a motion to table the community needs assessment review of community needs assessment across other Massachusetts municipalities?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to table it.
Okay, can I hear a second?
my second.
Okay, so it's roll call. Yams,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Anna,
Yes.
Pedro.
Yes.
Yeah, and I vote yes, so we have unanimous to move this, to table it to next month's commission meeting. And then we are on part D, which is to discuss approach to public outreach about meetings and events in order to develop a formal process. So what I do want to share is, at last meeting, we talked about, Yams actually brought this suggestion up to see if whether or not we could get a Facebook page for the commission. So we can, but there's a caveat to that. So it's informational only. We can't have a back and forth discussion with anybody. So it's, we can post our meeting times, we can post our meeting minutes, we can post any outreach events that we're doing. So it's just educational. And so I think we should go for it, I'm gonna work with the city on that to make sure that I stay under the parameters of the city, and having a social media page under, as a public body of the city. I want to make sure that we're doing it right and that nobody has an open meeting violation. Um, s- What do people think about that?
I'm fine with it as long as someone can keep up with it. Yeah, because the whole thing with the back, because we were going to try to do one, but our problem is we do a lot that we have to do back and forth. So we're just going to our health page is kind of our blip for putting stuff out there. Because yeah, if you have to meet open meeting law and record request law, which means you have to keep track of every single thing that's mentioned or said on the Facebook page. So that's where it gets a little labor intensive. But otherwise, obviously, yeah, getting things out there and everything, I'm fine with that because at least we can post updates and links to things. So
Yeah,
that's still
because
helpful.
that's why I said
And,
we
and it
can't.
keeps us
back
a
and
little
forth.
page because I know, the city of Greenfield has its site, but sometimes there's a blast of a lot of stuff and it can get lost.
Yep, that's true. Yams.
I'm curious if this would be like when we have a secretary position, is this something that we would want under purview of the secretary, or is this something that we would all have access to as a commission? And how we would like to do that?
I think my first thought about that is, the chair should be populating the Facebook page because
Mhm.
following open meeting law, making sure that we stay aligned with that. Yeah, but it doesn't mean that we can't discuss like what's going to go on the Facebook page. If you have an idea and you want it to be posted, but if we get all of us involved, that's where it gets sticky, right? And we don't want to. I'm okay with handling a Facebook page. I've admin Facebook pages before. I can handle it with your support. Like if we're going to do an outreach event, we have a lot of skills here at this commission, right? Anna said you could help with flyers and things like that. We need people to help with copy, meaning like what do we want to say? How do we want to say it? Especially if we're doing outreach events. So I think we can all have a part in it, but the posting I think has to come from me. But I will get clarity with the clerk as well. I want to
Yeah,
make sure that I know what's going on before.
I think we could set up like kind of like a command structure, kind of, the president posts generally, and if the president's not around and we want something up, it goes to the vice president or the
Yep.
secretary. I think
Yep.
set up just some kind of structure like that.
Yeah, I like
Um,
that. And it's the same if I wasn't attending a meeting, say I was out sick. Um, you would just appoint a temporary chair for that meeting, because I did ask that of the clerk. And that's what she said. So that's, yeah, that's a really good point.
And we
Um,
did write into our ordinance that the town is, required to do some help.
Yep.
So I think, getting Jonathan, the media director, to help get things out there, will be part of it. Just because that's part of the ordinance. So,
Mhm.
so we can certainly, maybe invite him to one of the meetings and kind of give our expectations of what hopefully he can do for us. And then we can kind of get his feel back on, what he can realistically do for us too.
Yep.
So that might be something we could do in the future too, after we talk to the clerk and the finance director.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think, also what comes up for me is language, like that's why I would want the copy to be created by us and not by him. Because, there are people with lived experience on this commission that could, use a non-stigmatizing language that most people may think it's, oh, like that's not a big deal, abuse. Well, it is. That's not a term that we use. That's a negative term. We use substance use instead of substance abuse. But some, folks that don't have that lived experience might not think it's an issue. Like, well, they're abusing their, says who, right? So we're gonna just try to stay in that lane of language. But yeah, that he definitely is there to support us. The city's there to support us, and I like your idea of inviting him, so that we can have that conversation that's out in the public, people can hear it, and saying, hey, what is your capacity, your bandwidth? We don't anticipate there's going to be a lot, but we want to post our monthly meetings. When you get the outreach rolling, we want to be able to let folks know. And we also had the other idea of, like, just about disseminating information, flyers, right? Paper flyers. Oh, Pedro. Thank you. I didn't see your hand.
No, it's fine. I know I'm on Zoom, so it's hard to see it sometimes. No, I love the idea of having like a social media page, whether if it's Facebook, Instagram. I think a lot of people get their news from social media as well, because it's, right in the palm of your hand and it's pretty quick just to kind of search things out. I'm not the best at handling social media sites, so I would bow out. I like the fact that there's one central person, kind of not necessarily taking the lead, like taking the lead with that. But I'm not the best person for it, so I would bow out of it. I can definitely help, even creating some content, maybe even having discussions of what. But I'm not one to man the page. But I do like the idea of having a social media page, to share a lot of that news and information, events. I know you were going into it as far as like paper flyers and physical flyers or physical prints that we can share, because there is some people that don't have social medias, whether they don't have the phone or just don't have a social media page, and that's not where they go for their news. There's other opportunities where we can share information, and I'm willing to open that up for conversation.
Yeah, we had a pretty robust conversation, Pedro, just to update you of like different spaces we could go,
Yeah.
to, community meals. We have these electronic boards in the city
Mhm.
where we could, put some of like the, hey, the Open Use Commission is meeting today, or
Yeah.
there's going to be a listening session at, one of the community meals, so we're thinking of spaces where people go. We're thinking
Right.
about being creative with like partnering with people that are already doing the work out there. Like there's a lot of folks that from the Recovery Project that do outreach all the time with the community. The Wildflower Alliance does that too. But connecting with their outreach people and just handing them, say, hey, would you, in your daily work, would you mind just passing these flyers out? I know Larry from Wildflower, he's my best friend. He'd be like, yeah, sure, I'll just throw them in my bag. We have people doing the work, so we could get that out there in paper media, in social media, in the whatever they're called, the message boards. Because you're right, a lot of people, some people don't do social media just because it's toxic to them. So yeah, thinking creatively of like how are we going to get the information out about our meetings? How are we going to get the information about what the community feels that this money should be spent on? Like that's our main focus is, getting their voice and doing something with the voice. not just hearing the voice and then doing nothing, but hearing the voice and making policies or, and things that the community is asking us to do. And yes.
These things are so weird.
They are.
I know we also talked as a commission about doing active outreach, because I do think, making sure that we have a presence on social media, making sure that, we have flyers around town, and available at, different community-based locations, but the work of doing like active outreach as well. Sometimes I know for me personally, like, yeah, if I see like a catchy like flyer, I'm like, oh, what's that? But I also have severe ADHD, so there's that. Um, but I know when you have like a face-to-face with a person and it's just one person and another person, it matters.
Mhm.
And I think that we reach a lot more people with that human interaction than just like, here's this flyer. And like, to be perfectly honest, like, I don't know how fun and captivating we can make a city government flyer be that would really like catch people, amongst all the other flyers of the places that we could like post them. Um, so having that face to face, because if we are asking for the voice of the people or to have more people fill this room, like again, we have to be really conscious about what we're asking and the community members that we are asking. A lot of them really value their anonymity, and we might be asking them to break that. And these are live streamed. So like there's weight to that. And so I think it's really important to have that human connection and establish that trust and that sense of safety, um, in order to really get the feedback that we're honestly looking for and needing as a commission. But then there's, for me, of like, I think it's really important. I think once we get this information on whether we can do subcommittees, I think having a subcommittee for outreach would be really useful. Because I'm thinking about, I know we all have busy lives and busy schedules. So like, where would we find the time as a commission to do that active outreach? It is winter time in New England. I can do it, but if I can avoid having to be out at night doing outreach in the cold, I actively will avoid doing it out at night in the cold. Um, but yeah, so that's just kind of what I'm thinking is like if we could do a subcommittee where we could do outreach and get that more face to face, and obviously listening sessions at different community places would be really good, or even just taking the time to sit down and have a meal with our community.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's if we can get the approval to have a subcommittee, I think that's an excellent idea. And community meals, I mean that's a good place to, because we could table at any of the community meals, and that would be face to face, it wouldn't be outside. um I'd also be willing to have some, if we want to make a flyer or literature, or I'm going to discuss this with Amy Kaling from the city first, but I'm the volunteer coordinator for the warming center this year for the city. So I'll have access to the guests that they're going to come through on the nights where the temperature reaches what it needs to for that to open, um, and figure out a way to also have that happen when I'm not there. I'm not going to be volunteering every night, but I've been thinking about creating like a drop box for people to just leave their feedback for the warming center period. They can do it anonymously. They can just drop it in there, but also, um, maybe we can create a document where somebody could fill it out with support, and then they could drop it in that box. I'm going to be taking the stuff that's in the box anyway as a coordinator. So I'd be willing to have a conversation with Amy Kaling and Captain from Salvation Army and seeing if they're cool with that. And then all I have to do is just orient the volunteers of, hey, this is what this is for, this is where they can drop it. And that's still that face-to-face kind of relational, like what Yams was saying, because yeah, I mean, we're talking about folks that have been historically marginalized and tokenized, kind of shoving a piece of paper at somebody that, and this was brought up in the first meeting about when the previous mayor did listening sessions. I was present and I heard wonderful ideas from our peers. And those same peers feel just forgotten, discounted. We gave you all these wonderful ideas and there was nothing because we didn't have a process. So I think everybody on this commission is mindful about that, about not wanting to re-traumatize or further harm the folks. That is the reason why this money is here. Anna.
So I think when it comes to outreach, there's two different questions that we're talking about. We're talking about generally speaking, feedback on the settlement funds and the response to the opioid crisis in general in the city, general feedback from the population who's been affected. And I think that's a bigger question, and it will be wrapped up with, we kind of skipped over the community needs assessment today, but it will be wrapped up in that because it's asking the same question. What are the needs of the community as they're communicating them to us right now? And a lot of these strategies, especially the outreach, is really going to be the best way to get at that from individuals.
Yep.
But at least from what I heard, I thought that we were also talking about outreach for the committee meetings themselves. And there's a lot that I can do as city staff that I really just hadn't done yet for this committee because we're still kind of getting our act together. And and not because I think like I don't want people to come and give public comment and hear what we're talking about, but for the exact reasons that Yams and Sarah were just mentioning, like I don't want to make people feel, and I'm glad that we have guests and that we have had guests in the past, but like, this is the be all end all, and we drag you out on a weeknight and you have to listen to some boring procedural stuff. And it's not, that's also not like the feedback necessarily that people want to be participating in. So
Right.
very happy to do like flyers and more information with just kind of the like basics of what the committee meeting is. And we had talked last month as well about like some kind of ABCs about city meetings in general, so people don't feel overwhelmed by the process, which I think everyone can benefit from, not just people who are interested in this topic. So very happy to work on that over the next month. But I think the bigger question, and I guess the other point I wanted to make is like, I don't think that the face-to-face outreach is necessarily the best way to do that, because if an outreach worker is interacting with somebody who is pursuing their basic needs in that moment, they don't really want to hear about a committee meeting. I want them to know that it exists if they want to come here. I just don't want to mix the messages necessarily. And I guess that, as I'm saying, I feel a little uncertain about that balance, because again, I want people to come to these meetings even though they are boring, but I also don't want to feel like we're wasting people's
So yeah,
time.
yeah, and thank you for like amplifying that we're talking about two different things here, right? Like the information about the meeting, about the commission meeting, is to have folks attend, right? And to that teaching is this is also a place to get your voice heard during public comment. That's why it exists, right? So that folks who are comfortable, because not everybody's comfortable coming to any kind of city meeting, we got to hold that space too. So yeah, there's two different avenues here. One is just getting the information about the commission, about when we meet, where we meet, that public comment, and then you could throw in there, public comment is 3 minutes, or at the discretion of the chair, if there's 50 people here, you're probably not getting 3 minutes each. But, that's something that I would announce in the beginning of the meeting. If there's, 30 people that showed up, I would just say, hey, in the interest of time, we want to hear from everybody, but we're going to have to carve it to 2, or, whatever is a fair-minded thing. But yeah, just to let folks know so that maybe they will be comfortable one day coming in here and be like, oh yeah, I know these folks are regular folks, it's not intimidating, come on through. And they may show up and we may, but the other thing is absolutely is connecting one-on-one with people about the settlement money period, right? What is there? Do they have any ideas, any suggestions? Do they have any feedback? even if they're disgruntled. I want to hear it. I want to hear why you're disgruntled and how we can do a better job, right? Because we weren't formed back then, but we are formed now. And we can make sure that their voices are not going to be tokenized, like, oh, we're just checking off a box here. No, this is your money. This is your money. Like, you should be a part of how it gets spent. So yeah, there's two different kind of conversations happening at one time. Yes.
I mean, I feel like it's still the same conversation. I feel like people might be more apt to come in if we have those conversations, because like the point that you made, we have public comment in the beginning, which is a time where community members can come in and voice their opinions on the work that we are doing and get to know a little bit more. Nobody's required to stay for the whole meeting. So it can just be a time where they come in to say, hey, this is what I would like to see, or this is what I struggle with as a person who uses substances or uses substances. Like, this could be that space for them.
Mm.
And if we are asking people who are either active drug users or who are in recovery to come and talk specifically about the needs that they see that are lacking in the community that we could be of support for, that's heavy for some people. As we said, like as was previously stated, that you just stated, we've done that many times as a city. So I feel like having that personable one-on-one and asking people to do that in that way, as opposed to like, yes, the listening sessions are great and we need to do that, but just going out and being seen and going into the community to like do this big to-do listening session, like we've done that so many times. But I think just getting out to be, honestly, that's why I love Jenny, because she was always out at everything all the time, just to be like, hey, I'm here, I'm a regular person, I'm part of the community. And that made me feel more comfortable coming to city council meetings and coming to school committee meetings and all of that stuff like that, when I just saw that these were regular, like we're just people, and it was just on that um somewhat level field. Nothing's going to be perfectly leveled. Um, and I feel like we want to have this space for public comment so we don't just have to wait around and like plan this big listening session, and we can hear what people are wanting like on Mondays at 5 o'clock.
Thank you. And Pedro Santres.
Yeah, some great points. And I second that. I think we need all of it, whether if it's physical flyers, social media pages, but I'm big on like the one-on-ones. I think you build those relationships up. And for a lot of folks coming in, even for myself, I'll speak candidly, like coming into this meeting today, a little intimidating. It's my first time being on the opioid commission, but I come in, I see Sarah, I've met Yam, so I'm like, oh, I know these people. I all right. So I think when we talk to our folks in the community, it's having that familiar face, that they trust, that person that they know that's bringing them into this space as well. So, on Yam's point about that outreach and those one-on-ones, those are conversations that we're having in this community, whether if it's Yams, doing the work out of the Recover Project, Sarah, you doing your work, you have Larry at Wildflower riding around towns, having these conversations with folks, you build that relationship up. These are individuals that are trusted in this community as well. That's not going to steer nobody wrong. So if you're having this conversation and hey, come into this meeting, we want to hear from you. They're hearing this on a flyer and be like, yeah, that's not for me. For some people, that's what's going to get them here is that flyer or that social media post or other conversations they're having amongst other people. But I think having them that outreach work goes a long way. I'm big on that. That's something that I don't get to do as often anymore in my role. But being out in the community with folks and building those relationships is key.
Absolutely, absolutely. I concur. And I think this is a broader conversation that's going to take some time to develop, including a schedule, right? Like the folks that want to do the public outreach to create, and I think Abby brought this up last meeting, is to have that like, hey, I'm gonna hit up the community meals on Monday and Wednesday. You could do it Tuesday, and it doesn't have to be every day, but getting our face out there, like to Pedro's point, um, when we first start doing this, we're gonna have to do it on a regular just to get people, um, comfortable, and what Pedro says, people in the community know you, they know me, right? Unless you're in a board of health, maybe they'll know Michael and maybe they'll know Anna if they have city business. And it's not that you couldn't do the outreach either, because I think it's important for them to know all the members of the commission, right? So I'm not like excluding either one of you, but and just, as we moved to develop this, started thinking of different spaces where we could, there's the Salvation Army does a morning and afternoon meal. It doesn't have to be nighttime, So if you had time at like, 7 a.m. When the meal, walk on over to Salvation Army and say, hey, we can set it up with the captain, like, hey, would you mind if we came through like during the community meal and just, had tabled and gave folks an opportunity to like, meet some members of the commission and ask us questions and because that's how we get folks involved. It doesn't mean that Anna and Michael, you have no value, because absolutely you do have value. But as far as I know, neither one of you has lived experience, with substance use. And that's sort of like our people are comfortable with their people, right? But as they get to know both of you, that's why I would like for both of you to be involved in that, because we're a commission, we're cohesive. And to know that, despite that, you're allies, you're absolute allies. And that they shouldn't be intimidated. They may be intimidated the first time, but I've got to know both of you over time, and I'm not intimidated by either one of you. But somebody that doesn't know you may be intimidated and like, oh, he's a board of health director, I don't want to talk to him. Like, you're a regular guy, Michael. You're easy to get along with, but I'm getting to know you. So I like that, just holding that space of figuring out what the different spaces where we could do that outreach, and reach the most people. And I think the community meals is definitely, the warming center is another opportunity. And I can't speak for the Recover Project because, they're not hosting this, but if you had opportunities where you could do that, we could talk about that too, and be respectful of, if there has to be some space between, the Recover Project and this, I'm sure Abby will let us know. But that's my home base, that's where I found my own personal recovery. And I would love to have the RP a part of that in some way. And I think, Anna, did you have something?
I think I have one question that I don't think has an answer and that we definitely will need to sit on. And that is just, once those conversations happen, and they are happening and it's ongoing, and especially with you guys, you're already having conversations with people in the community. How do we preserve and share that information without like transcribing or sharing people's personal business, which is not what we want to do, right? Like, I think we need to think about, like, if I go to a community meal and I have some conversations, those are conversations with me, a human being, and that can be the end of it. But there's also data that I'm getting out of that about the community that I want to be able to share with you guys. And so I think maybe each of us just needs to be mindful about how we like store the information from these conversations so that we can share them. Don't write stuff down unless you have to, because once you write it down, then it's a record. But that's the bigger question. The other thing that occurred to me when Pedro was talking is that like the biggest downside of public comment is people can't ask us questions. Like a thought I had when I was looking at the community needs assessments is like, I'm kind of curious how many people even knew that the settlements were a thing before they got the survey in their hand asking them what they think we should do with the settlement money, right? To say nothing about like, how does this work and what are the categories it can be spent on and that kind of thing. So as we're having these conversations with the public, one thing I'd ask of my fellow commissioners is to try to get a sense of what people don't know because that will tell us what kind of information, basic information we can be putting out. Did people know that there was a settlement? Did they know how those funds are being used in other towns? Have they heard of it? Is it news to them? Yeah, that's something I'll be interested.
And
Hear of.
to your point, we can develop like a little guideline, like something that we could use. And far as data, I'll just share with you, a process that we use in, data collecting for, the peer recovery, right? Which is all about anonymity and holding people's information, So we can de-identify the name. We don't have to put people's names at all. When the person shares, if it's during like a natural conversation, we can have that form, or we could ask questions so people can kind of get but what I do at the end of a session is I ask the person, this is going to go into like a data collection, it's going to go into the commission so that, we can actually do something with what you're sharing with us, that what you say is important to us. What part of that are you okay with going into the data, and let them tell you, and they'll say, oh yeah, you can tell them that I want this, this, and this, and then that's what goes into the record. We can have natural human conversations, but at the end is where we're going to do reflective listening and summarizing. Like, you tell me, this is what I heard you say. Is it okay if I write this down and it's going to go to the commission, so that when we start making decisions, right, we want your voice to matter. And then this is how you can continue to, if you want to come to our commission meetings, you're comfortable. If not, my emails, I can give them my email, the commission email, they can email me, further thoughts, but, creating that pathway where we're still collecting data, for the community needs, what they want done. We're honoring their anonymity, and their voice, right? Voice and choice, that they have the choice to say, not that, but this. And I think if we just put that into our, sort of like, I hate the term tick list, but, like just a guideline that we'll have, like a sheet of paper, that when we're having these interactions, and I'm always transparent, and I'm saying, hey, this is a new process for us, and I'll show them, hey, this is what this paper looks like. And it's just to guide me, because I want to ask some questions of you, that are part of our data. And it's about, what you said, adding, did you know about the abatement funds? How did you hear about the, abatement funds, or things like that? And I think we're going to be surprised. And I think that my guess is going to be 50-50, because there's 50% are claimants already. So they know about the abatement funds, and the other 50% are like, maybe they're in a claimant and maybe they didn't know, or they're not paying attention, they didn't pay attention to because there's a lot. And that way we can kind of capture that. Yams. But I like that idea.
Yeah, I love that question or that thought, and I think that's really great. I'm wondering if there's even something that we can have here for, I'm gonna say when, because I'm gonna manifest for when people start
Yeah.
filling up these chairs and 30 people want a public comment. I wonder if there can be some type of informational flyer that says, this is what we can spend the money on. This
Yep.
is what the, like just as like a quick snapshot of what we are doing here. Yeah.
Oh, and I have one more thing, the question you asked about the public comment. Um, they can actually ask the question of the commission. It's up to the chair to entertain that. So technically they could, if it was something that we felt like it was important for us to answer, then absolutely I would allow that as a chair. But also getting that out to the community, like, general practices is you say your piece for 3 minutes, we're all listening. But if you ask a direct question that I feel is important to answer in that moment, then absolutely, I will open it up, but also being respectful of time, like you point, like if there's 30 people here, and 30 people want to do a back and forth with the commission, we have to have guidelines. So that's my understanding, and I try to be fair-minded about it. And I probably will ask the commission inside of a meeting, like, and once they were done, I'll say, could you just stay put for a minute? And I said, I'd like to respond to that. How's the commission feel? If I get a thumbs up, then I'm gonna respond to whatever the question is. And if I don't know, the question that they're asking, I think that's also good to say that too. Like, that was a really good question. We don't know. Um, we will circle back next month, right, with the answer. If it's an urgent situation, then, we'll have to figure that out. Because I don't know how that usually works. I mean, I know city council, I mean, they have emails and, um, they get emailed all the time, and I had to create an email myself for the commission because we don't have, city emails. So yeah, I mean, I think we can entertain that, as appropriate, you know. Whew. Well, any further discussion about this? Like I said, it's a work in progress. We're not, I think we have some, action items, that we could work on, for next month, when, Abby's here and, hopefully our last member will be here. Yeah.
One comment. So I really like the, I mean, obviously I want people to be here too, to ask questions of us in person. We hold these meetings. It's a good use of time. So I do hope people show up. I really would like to do a lot more of the one-on-ones. I think that's kind of where I do better. As you kind of put it too, which is funny because I mean, so people do see, what I do for the day and everything else, and it would be harder to approach me. I think it would be harder to approach me if I was myself too. But one of the big reasons I joined, one of the big reasons I joined this commission, is I did lose more friends and I have fingers and toes to this epidemic. It was prime during my whole growing up through high school, college years, everything. So that's kind of why I came to be on this. I don't discuss it too much, probably just personal issues, other matters. I don't bring a lot of my personal stuff into my job, so I kind of leave that out. If you met me on the street on the weekends, you probably wouldn't have any idea what I do during the week. But I think that's where I would do really good, is getting to talk to people and really share experiences and talk to them and really go through it and get people's opinions. If anyone's even watching, you want to call up and just tell me what you think. You can always call the health department, just ask for me. But yeah, I think that'll be good, but I think it will be a good to get a mix of both too.
Yeah, and thank you for, being vulnerable, to share that. And I'm very sorry, for your losses as well. I think it's really, in today's day and age, that there's not too many people that haven't been touched by, loss from opioids. And, the generation that is, my sister's children, it really hit that generation pretty hard. Just access, like when I'm an 80s kid, the substances I had access to were nothing like what the kids had access to now, and more deadly, than when I was a teenager, and I'm still in recovery from opioids. So, I escaped some of the earlier stuff, but definitely not that. So thank you, Michael. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you willing to, connect one-on-one, with folks, because I think that's super important, and I know you to be a good, kind person, and that's what matters, is somebody that can sit with somebody and hold the space, and really listen, and let somebody know that you care. So thank you for that. Any other discussions about this, or do we want to, table the rest of the discussion for next month? So we got a lot of stuff we got to do.
I
Between the,
thought this was a really productive discussion, to be honest. This was awesome. But I move that we table the ongoing discussion to next month.
yeah. Okay, so you made a motion. Can I hear a second?
Second,
Pedro?
Yes, I'm in favor.
Okay. Hannah?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Yams?
yep.
Sarah? Yes. Chair says yes. Unanimous to table, the discussion about public outreach for next month. Where we work on some of the things that we discussed. I agree with Anna. I mean, I think we really rolled up our sleeves tonight and really just sort of, it is hard. It's hard to talk about a process and internal framework, like, when what did you say? Like we're in the plane. And it's still being built. We're in the plane. Yeah, no, that was all you. And that was perfect because that's how I felt. Like, we're kind of like wobbling like this. And we're like, okay, well, there's an operating manual somewhere. Oh, wait, no, is that we're creating the operating manual. So I just want to express my gratitude for all of you, in this work. I mean, it's, sitting in my chair as the chair, and being so personally invested in all of this. You folks have made it really, comfortable for me to sit where I'm sitting right now. and to move through this process, because it's hard, honestly, sometimes I go home and I cry because it brings up stuff for me and my losses. But then I think about like all of us and I'm like, you know what, like we're trying to do right by our community. And every month that we show up and have these conversations, we're doing right by our community. And I'm hoping that all the work that we're doing, that folks are coming through, right? Or maybe they're not coming through, but maybe they're watching this on GCTV, after the fact. And they're seeing that we're real human beings. We care. We care. We want to do the very best for our community with this money, but we need a community voice in order for that to happen. Um, so that is the last item on our agenda. The next scheduled meeting will be December 15th, 2025 at 5 p.m. at the John Zahn Community Center and on Zoom. Can I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Have a second.
I second the motion.
Okay, and Anna,
Yes.
Yams,
Yep.
and I vote yes. We have unanimous to adjourn at 6:31 p.m.